Well, welcome everyone. This is Joanne Geer. I am the Executive Director for the Westchester Biotech Project, and you're all in the right place for our session on writing a commercialization plan. You'll be meeting our speakers in just a moment. What I'd like to do is introduce you, and we'll be hearing from Marla Coppolino from Cornell, Doug Greene from DAGPHAMED, and Dalfoni Banerjee from 360 Pharma Solutions, all of whom have been really wonderful participants and advisors in growing our programs. I'm going to introduce Michael Welling to say a few words about our organization.
Thanks, Joanne. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for what certainly looks to be another sort of lively and informative discussion as we continue our efforts through our Westchester Biotech Project organization and trying to bring together our community and help foster collaboration and growth. For those of you who are new to our organization, welcome. For those of you who are back again, thank you again for your interest, participation, and support. Westchester Biotech Project, we are a 501(c) nonprofit organization. Our mission has really been driven by supporting and championing and doing what we can to further the careers of researchers, data scientists, and engineers. When anyone looks at the landscape of the biotech, life sciences, healthcare community, at the core of most successful organizations is some sense of research, data science, and engineering. And so we recognize that and certainly do what we can to bring them all together and support them any way we can. We have a number of initiatives that we currently have underway. As you see up on the screen here, sort of our lab to market bucket, our building the biotech cluster bucket, and our roundtable on researchers, which is part of our lab to market, is what you're here for today. All these different initiatives have different focus in mind, and all certainly we encourage anyone to get involved and join us and participate in any existing undertaking we have, and certainly we welcome any insight or input from any of you about areas perhaps we have not yet tackled and perhaps that you think that we should. Along the lines of partnership and support, none of this would be possible without the support of our partners, which are listed here on the screen. Some of them have been with us since day one, some of them more new, but at the same time, they all share the same sort of passion and vision and interest in helping to grow this community. So we thank all of them. I'm proud to say there's too many to name them all by name. But we encourage everyone to certainly look into who some of those partners are and reach out should there be any services or support they can provide you. This quote here is something that Joanne has been sort of speaking for quite some time. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. And this is something that really has sort of been the underpinning to our efforts in not looking for a quick solution or flash in the pan effort as it relates to our community here regionally and internationally. But we have really taken a big picture view on how we can make an impact and affect change. And something that will be coming soon is our Blueprint 2030, which is our strategic plan about how we can move our community forward over the next 10 plus years. And when I talk about our community, and certainly while Westchester is in our name, it's not in our name because this is our only focus, but rather our positioning of Westchester in the global biotech community. And this has been evidenced through our partnership with Westchester Biotech Project Europe. There are events and activities underway there. We are engaged with some other regions around the world as well as around this country. So we are constantly looking to learn, engage, and partner with anyone from any part of the global community looking to sort of support and further the work that's being done. Okay.
Thank you, Michael. I just so appreciate our speakers today, and I'm going to be handing the baton over to Dalfoni Banerjee in a moment. Just want to let everyone know that this session is being recorded, and when we post the recording in our YouTube channel, and we'll send everybody the link to that, we just do the presentation section, not the discussion which comes later. Though we do record everything, and if we have a juicy quote we'd like to quote you on, we'll talk to you before we do that publicly. What we'll do is we're going to be listening to the presentation, and then we'll have a discussion and invite people on the call to ask questions and make comments, introduce yourself, talk about your program, any challenges or ideas that you'd like to share. And feel free in the meantime to include your questions in the chat box, and we'll take care of them all at the end. We have a nice long time for discussion, so you don't need to worry if we don't get to it during the first session. And so, Dalfoni, I am going to make you the presenter. And there you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan.
I will say, for those who are having, if you are on a computer that doesn't have a microphone, on the interface you can choose phone call audio, and when you make that choice you will get a call-in number. So if you'd like to call in to be able to participate, that's great. And I will just say it's wonderful if everybody can mute themselves when you're not speaking. Dalfoni, please take it away.
Well, thank you, Joanne, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Grant Writing Essentials. Our program today is part 2 in a series. It's called the Commercialization Plan, and we've prepared some start-off points to help get the discussion started. We're thrilled to be here, and like I mentioned, look forward to the discussion, and thank you, Michael and Joanne, for inviting us to be part of this important discussion. As I just mentioned, this is part 2 of a series. The first part was recorded on May 16th of this year, and we have a link to the recording and the slides on our additional link slide in this presentation. So if you want to go back and review it, you'll be able to do that. And of course, if you go to the Westchester Biotech Project website, there's also the links there. So this is our agenda for today. You have 3 presenters, and we'll introduce ourselves right after this slide. We have the welcome and introductions, which we're doing now. Then Marla will take us through, in the beginning, there was intellectual property. Then hand it over to Doug to talk about both the universe of the commercialization plan, as well as pressure testing your idea once you get it, and then reaching escape velocity, just to keep in keeping with our theme. Then Doug will hand it back over to Marla to talk about university and company partnerships, and then I'll round it out the discussion with operationalization, program and project management tools, and then hand it back over to Joanne for a discussion and questions. So I'm Dalfoni Banerjee, the Principal Consultant and CEO at 360 Pharma Solutions. Our mission is to partner with pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and medical device companies to accelerate your clinical research to product launch pipeline. Our clients include startups, emerging biotechs, and large pharmaceutical companies. We specialize in program and project management, clinical trial management, process development, communications, investigator engagement, vendor management, and CRA training. What differentiates us is that our experts average over 20 years of experience, of industry experience. So we've been there, done that, seen almost anything there is to see. And what makes us, and the other differentiator is that we have robust processes, because at heart we're project managers, and a flat operating structure, which makes us innovative business partners for you and able to deliver high quality results. So that's a little bit about me and my company. I'll hand it over to Doug.
Hi, my name's Doug Greene. I'm a physician by training. I spent about 30 years in academic medicine, served as chair of an FDA advisory panel for the better part of a decade. And as a result of some of that interest, I transitioned to large pharma and small pharma, where I spent about 20 years, which means I'm old. And now I'm devoting my activities to helping academically based biotech startups cross the valley of the shadow of death and move on to successful commercialization. Marla?
Thanks, Doug. Hi, I'm Marla Coppolino. I'm Director of Business Development and Outreach for Cornell University Center for Advanced Technology. This is a New York State funded entity, and we provide support, funding, and connections for biotechnologies, not only from Cornell University labs, but also we provide collaborative research support between Cornell professors and New York State companies, including startups, aiming to bring biotechnology to the commercial market. So you can think of me as your friend and a liaison between your biotechnology, between Cornell and the commercial realm. So I'm here to help you. I think we're gonna change, there we are. So I'm gonna kick off our session today. In the beginning, there was intellectual property, right? Now, some of you are probably over this step already, and maybe you've already disclosed your property. Maybe you've already even got a patent, but because everybody in this session might be at different levels, there's no harm in going back to the basics and talking about intellectual property and the importance of protecting your invention. Next slide, please. Right, so we all start with laboratory notebooks. You've got something that's working in your lab and you think it's a unique discovery. Please, using indelible ink in a bound book, record all your observations. Important especially is in terms of inventorship, who did what? Are you the scientist who has students in your lab, or grad students, or postdoc, or other scientists? Very important to know who did what and when. So you're at the beginning here. Also, very important is make sure your experimental design is actually repeatable. You can't have a patented technology unless you have repeatable experimental design. Okay. All right, next slide, please.
Sure, and Marla, this is Dalfoni. I just want to make sure you can see this. Can you see the slides changing all right?
I can, thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Yep.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you for that, Dal. Thank you for changing the slide. So given those notebooks being so important, they're critical often to the later stages of your patenting process. In fact, it's not uncommon that even many years after your invention's been patented, that people will need to go back to look at the notebooks for that original documentation. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get a good, strong start on your biotech commercialization pathway by having good laboratory notebooks. So where do you go from there? So having the prerequisites are important for moving forward. If you're interested in looking at your patent landscape, this is something you can do very easily by looking at the uspto.gov website, where you can see what is it that's already been patented that might be similar to my invention, and then what is it about mine that's unique? What is distinguishing my invention and making it a cut above what's already out there? If that's not there, then you might not have anything. If your invention is just incrementally different from something else that exists, it might not be strong enough to hold up as a patent. So do your research. This is very easy. You could just go online and plug in a few search words. Some cautions while you're in these early stages. You don't want to be sharing your confidential information at conferences, in a talk, in any kind of public disclosure, including even a poster session, or even on your website. Say like you have a laboratory website, a university page, you don't want to be disclosing what makes your invention unique, makes your technology unique. So be careful of that. So you're still at the invention disclosure process. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Okay. Now, if you happen to be a researcher at a university, the great thing is universities have tech transfer offices. Almost every major research university has one, and they offer an enormous amount of benefits to you. First of all, no financial risk. It is not up to you to turn your pockets inside out to pay patent fees and attorney fees. So think about that. Get to know the folks in your university tech transfer office. They will be your friends. They will hold your hand, walk you through these processes, which maybe you've never done before. The university actually pays for the filing and attorney fees. Now, that said, the university also owns the technology, but if you form a startup later based on it, you would then be licensing the technology from the university. A percentage of royalties always goes back to you. Every university has a different structure in the portions, but and undoubtedly you will see royalties from your invention that you have disclosed at a university. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, no, let me stay on this. Yeah, here. Sorry, one back, please. One forward, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. There we are. So all those things that you've recorded in your laboratory notebook are going to go into your provisional filing. And that is the first step for your patent process. So all those things you see in the column on the left, right? Okay. Just a note on what can be patented. You can read a lot more about these things on the USPTO.gov website, but methods, prototypes certainly are patentable. Copyrights, if you're having any software code, and oftentimes these days with biomedical inventions, there's some kind of accompanying software, and that part would be copyrighted in addition perhaps to a medical device, for instance. Finally, I wanted to make a mention here, especially because of the rise of medical use marijuana becoming growing in popularity of discovery and of perhaps compounds that are helpful for various conditions. There are plant patents available. So if you happen to be a plant researcher, plant scientist, just know that there's a whole process that's related to the patenting process. It's just for specifically for plant patents, including new varieties or experimental lines. Next slide, please. All right, so I hope that helps you out to know some of the basics that are needed for filing your provisional patent. That provisional patent application provides you with 1 year period to decide whether you're going to convert to a full utility patent or to a PCT application, which is something that will allow filing in most major countries in the world. But in any case, that PCT could allow you for 12 additional months of patent pending status. The whole life of your patent could be 21 years. Again, you can learn much more about the particulars of the patenting process through your university tech transfer office and through the USPTO. So at this point, I'm going to hand over the program to Doug. Doug?
Thanks, Marla. So you've got your patent, you've formed your company, and now we need to move into the deep dive into the universe of NIH grant writing as it relates to the commercialization plan. I'd say at the outset that we're going to talk about this mostly from the perspective of small business grants to the NIH, but the process is very similar for the NSF and the DoD as well. So the roadmap that we're talking about is to obtain either an SBIR or an TTR, a technology transfer grant, for NIH support to take your idea and begin to develop it into a commercialized product. You will need to have a detailed commercialization plan if you are past the feasibility phase of your SBIR process and into phase 2, or if you decide to take the more ambitious approach, which is to get funding for both the feasibility phase and the phase 2 R&D phase of the grant at the same time by making a fast track application. And these require and will be evaluated on the basis of how good is your commercialization plan on top of how good your research plan is. Next slide. So this outlines the process of the SBIR STTR. Phase 1 is for demonstrating feasibility over a 6 to 12 month period of your idea with a small amount of money that can sort of get you started and get you off the ground. The second phase is where most of the science is actually developed and expanded, which is supported by the NIH, but it is supported by the NIH based on the assumption and your ability to articulate how the results of that research can then subsequently be transformed into a commercializable idea with resources and collaborations that are outside of the NIH. And so in order to achieve the R&D portion, you need to be able to project, envision, and describe the commercialization process if you are going to be successful in this grant process. Next slide. So this then fits in the overall process that you need to navigate for a successful company. The idea needs to be translated into a fundable project and program so that you can test it. You need to be able to describe how the results of that testing will lead to an appropriate partnership for externalization of the concept to the point that it can become commercializable. And we're focusing on the green box, how to get it funded and pressure tested under the auspices of the NIH. Next slide. So the commercialization plan is an essential part of a phase 2 or fast track application. It has a specific table of contents, which is available on the NIH website. It has to be formatted within 12 pages, and it has to outline not only what the research plan is in a brief summary, but it has to demonstrate the value which will be achieved by accomplishing the research objectives. So there needs to be a correlation and correspondence between the research plan and the commercialization plan in a step-by-step fashion. It requires a description of the company, the resources that you have, the resources that you don't have but need, and how you will garner those resources and collaborations and expertise. It needs to articulate from the point of view of the marketplace, the commercializability of the product, what will be of interest to a customer, what are they looking for, what's the competition, how is it protected in order to be commercialized, what's your plan for financing it, how ultimately it will be manufacturable and marketable, and what the ultimate funding and revenue stream will look like. And it's just not making this sort of out of the back of your head. It needs to have commitments from all of the outside resources that you will need to accomplish that in the form of letters of support at the time that the grant application goes in. So it requires a lot of pre-work. If you haven't done this pre-work and you're sitting down to write the grant, and suddenly at the last minute you say, oh my gosh, I need all of this other stuff, you've missed the boat, and you will be subject to the explosion of a supernova, and you will end up unsuccessful in writing the grant. So how do we actually go ahead and plan and pressure test what it is that we need to do in order to put this commercialization plan together so we can reach escape velocity? Well, let me give you some examples. It requires that you have insight and access to market research and a detailed market research survey that demonstrates the commercializability of your product, your idea. You need to be able to articulate what are the competitors out there, what is already approved and in the marketplace, how is your product better, and what other products are in development that you will need to compete with. You need to be able to articulate in detail the feasibility that you have undertaken for market acceptance, and not only market acceptance, but also regulatory acceptance. And finally, you need to be able to articulate an exit strategy. Is it the expectation that your company at some point in development will be acquired, or are you going to look for outside investors? Who are those investors? And have those investors been spoken to so that they'll write you a letter that says that if you accomplish all of the things that you've articulated in your research plan, that they would be interested in considering making an investment in your product. And all of that needs to be thought through up front in a way that you can articulate it in the grant. Next slide. And so, for example, let's assume you have a drug product, you've done some wonderful in vitro work, you now want to put in a fast track application to be able to get a lead compound, and then take that lead compound into animal testing, perhaps scale up manufacturing, perhaps to be able to actually go into man. You would need to understand the resources, collaborations, and expertise that you would need to accomplish that, how you would do it, what resources you have within your institution, and what are the plans to get the resources that are not within your institution and be able to bring them into the research plan as collaborators and contractors. If you're talking about an engineering device, a medical device, you would need to take it perhaps through prototyping and manufacturing of prototypes, again, requiring expertise and resources that are probably outside the realm of your institution. You need to be able to articulate how you're going to do that and document that you've had those discussions and collaborations with letters of support. Next slide. And so all of these concepts then need to be woven together into the grant application itself in a way that articulates with and complements the research plan, so that each element of the commercialization plan has a foundation within an objective of the research plan, and each objective of the research plan furthers the process of making your product more commercializable, and that there is a complete integration of the research plan and the commercialization plan. A lot of work, a lot of forethought, a lot of internal thinking, a lot of outreach beyond and over the top of the wall of the ivory tower. And the great hope is that your institution, your university, has all of those resources and all of those contacts that they can help you with your internal processes and your external outreach to make that commercialization plan a reality. And Marla is going to talk about what those internal university resources are that you can tap into to gain these external partnerships. Marla?
Hi, I'm back on. I needed just to unmute myself. Thanks, Doug, very much. Yes, so I'm here to talk about some of the beautiful things that can happen when you have university and company partnerships working together to bring a technology to the market. Next slide, please. Thanks. Yeah. So our goal at Cornell in our Center for Advanced Technology program, as well as other similar programs across New York State, is to make porous those walls of the ivory tower. So we want to have university and companies marry their talents on both sides. So companies have the infrastructure to support research and development, product development, and the ability to scale up. And the universities are hotbeds of innovation and cutting-edge research. There are many instances and great examples we have of commercialized biotech and biomedical products that are now on the market, resulting from such partnerships. It's a win-win for both parties. Next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so if you're on the university side, here's some quick go-to resources that you might want to be considering. As I mentioned before, you've got your tech transfer office at your university. Again, get to be friends with the staff members there because they're there to help you out with these early stage processes. Most universities these days have some sort of an entrepreneurship type of an office. And other entrepreneurial units at the different colleges. We certainly do at Cornell. We have entrepreneurial types of units here in the Institute of Biotechnology at Cornell, also down in New York City area on our medical campus, and now even in our Geneva, New York campus. So these offices can be throughout universities. One of the most important and probably most hidden resources that most research universities have are business research librarians. And what are they? What do they do? So if you are having questions about how to do market research, what products are already on the market, that is not just already patented, but out there on the market being sold and used in hospitals, in facilities, that you can tap into your business research librarians and ask them that very question. Now, you may or may not have heard of Frost and Sullivan reports. These reports can cost between $4,000 and $5,000, sometimes even more, and none of us can afford them, but the business research librarians have full access to those types of reports, and they can pull out the parts that you need and send it to you. So great thing to know. So also get to be friends with your business research librarians at your university. Okay, there are other supportive programs, various types of advisement, grants. If you have an on-campus incubator, that's also a great resource to help you understand the path ahead of you. And finally, I have to put in a little plug here. The NSF iCourt short course is a great program that's free to you, whether you are a university researcher or you're outside a university. They also help you out. This is a 2-week-long customer discovery process where you are interviewing customers to find out the real pain in the marketplace. And that's essential for moving forward. And by the way, a lot of SBIR, STTR grant reviewers are nowadays looking to see if you've gone through an NSF iCourse short course. They look at this, and this shows that you're serious, that you know there's a market need for your technology, and you've done your homework. Later on, investors will also look for that too. Yes, and on this slide, if you're on the company side and not affiliated necessarily with a research university, well, we hope you are, and if you connect with me, I can help you with that. But there are also similar resources within New York State. The SBDC is the Small Business Development Council, which is a partnership between New York State's resources and the Small Business Administration, or SBA, which you might have heard of. The SBA has regional and district offices across several states, including Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, also California. And the SBA services include advisement, business and market research, competitive analysis, business plan help, and many other areas, and librarians also. So you can also tap into them if you're wishing to do market research through business librarians who have access to such reports such as Frost and Sullivan. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. So this Venn diagram slide is showing how each of the units can contribute. Okay. So again, on the academic side, the university side, you've got scientists, you've got laboratories, innovative ideas, and oftentimes the idea might be coming from the company side, and the university partner would be doing the validation for the experiments and trials that the company wishes to do. So that's one great way of a partnership happening. Also, don't forget, research universities have core facilities. And what are these? For example, at Cornell in the Institute of Biotechnology, we have a genomics facility, proteomics, metabolomics, imaging, and a new core facility of flow cytometry. These are not only limited to university researchers, but they are available for any company located anywhere who needs this type of high state-of-the-art equipment to run their experiments on. Okay, on the company side, of course, if you've formed your startup, you've got business leadership, you've got the infrastructure to promote the scale up and branding. You've probably already done your research for target customers, and eventually you'll attract investors. So again, it's a win-win situation. Here's an example over on the right side of the screen where we had a Cornell researcher he was an immunologist. He made the discovery that human gum tissue actually absorbs more allergy serum than under the skin elsewhere. So this was actually found to be a more effective means of delivering allergen immunology than if it was delivered via injection. So he had this light bulb kind of an idea after this discovery that why not incorporate an allergy serum specially tailored for the patient in a toothpaste, using the toothpaste as the vehicle for it. The patient then self-administers their own allergy immunotherapy simply by brushing their teeth. So no more allergy shots. How cool is that? And that was a great example of a partnership between Cornell University and a small startup company. A few additional examples I'll just mention, because Doug mentioned animal models are so often used in early stage research. If you want to establish that a prototype is working, universities such as Cornell, we have animal models, everything from mice to horses and between. If you're looking to commercialize your device in human medicine, you can start by running trials in animals, and this often happens through university and company partnerships. So here we are looking up at the galaxy, and if you've done all your early legwork, then you've got a galaxy of a plan, I hope. And I'm now going to turn the program over to Dalfoni, who will then help us bring the program back down to earth with her next steps. Hand it over to Dal now.
Well, thank you, Marla. A wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed hearing you and Doug go through that. Very helpful information. So, yes, I will bring us back out of the stars, back down to earth, and talk about the operations around your grant writing and other projects as well. So just focused on the grant writing process, there are lots of moving parts. And what you need, as for any project, is a comprehensive yet simple project management system and some processes, ones that will fit within your own infrastructure. The options are essentially off-the-shelf project management tools. There are lots of them out there that you can buy, or you can create one of your own. At 360 Pharma Solutions, we've created one that we use with our clients. We call it the 360 Tracker, no-brainer there. It's essentially a spreadsheet with multiple tabs. The tabs change based on the project, and can be tailored. And this is just an example. Obviously, again, you can create your own using whatever tools that you like, but I thought it might be helpful just to give you a glimpse into what a simple yet effective system can look like. So the most important thing is to have a system and processes for managing your project. I'll give a few sample tabs just to show you what one can look like. Again, simple, comprehensive, but one that fits into your structure. So here is our tabs on the right-hand side here, sample tabs for a tracker. Again, simple. One tab could be the notes and RAID, and RAID is risks, actions, issues, and decisions. It's so important to capture those items, especially when you're developing a new product. Well, when was the decision made? How was it made? Where was it made? And it also goes into the patent realm as well, just documenting those things. Grant details and company info. Grants, like I mentioned, have a lot of moving parts. So especially if you have one person, have a team of people, more than one person working on the grant, you really need to track those details and that you need for your company, and some other details as well, which we'll get into. Your timeline, of course. The grant components tracker, which is what I just alluded to there, where again you have a lot of components in the grant tracker grant process, and just having a tracker around it. We'll take a look at what one can look like in just a moment. High-level milestones, Gantt, a detailed budget, stakeholder map, a RACI, which is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, sort of snapshot, and I'll show you what one can look like. Experiment prioritization is another tab you can have, and I always like to keep a running list of lessons learned as well. So that's always very helpful. The grant details and company information. In the grant writing process, whether you're doing a fast track or a phase 2 NIH grant or other grants, there are systems that you need to access. There are numbers that you need to have. And those are all usually articulated within the solicitation or within the grant. But it's nice to have a one-stop shop for where all of your company information, all of the grant specifics can be found, and that's one tab in the 360 Project Tracker. The grants component tracker, this is just a snapshot where I list, I think it's probably around 50 or 60 components that we track in our grant components tracker that we just keep track of. Who is, what the task is or what the component is, the status, the target date, owner, any notes in your risks, issues, decisions, and that kind of thing can also be kept here, and then what format it is. Again, simple, doesn't have to, these are not necessarily the columns that you have to use, but it's just a way of keeping track of your grant and how it's progressing. High-level milestones, Gantt. The beauty of keeping a Gantt chart right up front is that you can also just cut and paste this right into your grant at the end of the, because there's always an ask for a timeline. So this is a high-level timeline that you can keep for yourself and use it within the grant as well. A RACI, so for each and again, this RACI can be integrated into any of the other tabs. This we've pulled out separately here because we are tracking the studies, the types of studies, what the next steps are, the costs we have here as well as and the RACI on the back end. Who's actually responsible for each study in this case, who's accountable, who needs to be consulted, and who needs to stay informed. And we're also, like I mentioned, tracking the budget on this particular RACI. Then a detailed budget as well. So this is the overarching budget. The most important thing about a budget and the budget tab, or however you keep your budget, is that it should be thorough. You really need to make it comprehensive so that you don't miss anything. And the budget should include your partner organizations and resources as well, if they are, if they need funding as part of that relationship. The last thing I'll go through is the stakeholder map. Honestly, it's a nice to have. We always encourage our clients to retain a stakeholder, what we call a stakeholder map. The reason is because it's just a nice snapshot of who's on the project and how do you get in touch with them. You're on a teleconference, and Jane Doe is a necessary participant, but she just isn't around. So, where is her cell phone number or her email address? If you have this stakeholder map, it's just a one-stop shop for your for all the folks who are on your project. So, in conclusion, you should have a project management system that's comprehensive, that's simple, that fits your needs, and that works for you. So, with that, I'll just the last slide here is. If I can get through these. The last slide is the additional links slide that I mentioned at the very top. Right at the first one here is the recording and the PDF of the first in the series NIH grant writing best practices that occurred on May 16th. But there are a number of links here that hopefully you'll find useful.